So the Chiefs made a trade. Yes, Brett Veach is alive and well, and not only did he cook for reasons I'll get into in this video, but it's a move that should be rather terrifying for the rest of the NFL as the Chiefs have their eyes on a three-peat. So I'll break that down in detail after I take a look at all the moves the Chiefs made over the last couple of days. But first, how about those? All right, well, a lot has happened over the past couple of days, including a bombshell of a trade that was announced very early this morning. So let's dive into all the craziness that has happened, starting with the flurry of roster moves the Chiefs made yesterday. 2 players left the practice squad. The first was quarterback Bailey Zappi, the former Patriot, who the Chiefs signed to the practice squad after roster cutdowns. Well, he was poached by the Cleveland Browns yesterday and signed to their active roster after losing 2 quarterbacks to injury in the same game. Deshaun Watson tore his Achilles and is out for the season. Then Dorian Thompson Robinson, he came in for Watson and injured his finger later in that game. Jameis Winston is now the starter with Thompson Robinson's status up in the air. So the Browns added one of the better available practice squad quarterbacks to their active roster in Bailey Zappi. Immediately after Zappi left, though, the Chiefs brought back Chris Oladokun. Chris O was drafted by the Steelers in the 7th round of the 2022 NFL Draft, but has spent the last couple of seasons on the Chiefs practice squad, so he's a guy that's very familiar with the system and was a no-brainer move to me. The next thing that happened with the practice squad was defensive back Keith Taylor being signed to an active roster contract from the practice squad as added depth due to cornerback Jalen Watson being placed on injured reserve. Watson broke his fibula and tibia near his ankle in the Chiefs' win over the Niners and has a very outside shot to maybe return later in the Chiefs' playoff run, but I wouldn't hold my breath on that. He is scheduled to have surgery at some point this week if he hasn't had it already. Of course, that is a tough blow to the Chiefs' secondary as he was the team's CB2 opposite Trent McDuffie, and was honestly playing fantastic this season. It's now the next man up, with Najee Johnson most likely getting more snaps out there, and Joshua Williams is a guy that they can work in as well. Then, with the wide receiver room being really thin after Juju Smith-Schuster injured his hamstring even more at the beginning of the 49ers game, KC opted to bring back another familiar face to the practice squad in wide receiver Cornell Powell. Powell was a 5th-round pick by the Chiefs in 2021 and has basically spent his career since then on Kansas City's practice squad. He kind of balled out during preseason, though, which is why I was a bit surprised that he wasn't added back to the practice squad after not making the 53-man roster. Obviously, the Chiefs preferred one of the 3 guys that are on there now. Well, 4 now with the addition of Powell, but the 3 they did roll with after roster cutdowns was Montrell Washington, Justin Ross, and Nico Remigio. One of these guys, by the way, might have a real chance of being elevated for this Sunday's game against the Raiders with the wide receiver room battling injuries. Now, I know the Chiefs added a receiver today. We're going to talk about that here in a moment, but I still think we have a shot at seeing one of them elevated for some added depth. Anyway, those were the moves made yesterday. Jalen Watson was placed on IR, which opened up 1 spot on the active roster. Keith Taylor was brought up from the practice squad to the active roster to fill that 53rd spot. The Browns then poached quarterback Bailey Zappi, and with 2 spots available on the practice squad, the Chiefs brought back 2 familiar faces, quarterback Chris Oladokun and wide receiver Cornell Powell. Now, KC will have more shuffling to do here very soon because, in spite of the roster being full right now, they just traded for a very intriguing wide receiver. And from here, I got to dive into the details of the trade, why Brett Veach is a genius for said trade, and break down a bit of what this guy brings to the table. But before I do that, Chiefs Bids is back with 2 partnered giveaways this week. It's a signed football by Trent McDuffie, cornerback one, who also wrote HBTC on there as a custom nod to the community, as well as a red Nike jersey with a Super Bowl 58 patch signed by Patrick Mahomes, QB1. So, to enter for your chance to win the Trent McDuffie football, all you got to do is join the Chiefs Bids private Facebook group by scanning the QR code or clicking the link in the description. Accept the group rules, that's important, and when approved, comment the word HBT Chiefs on the giveaway post pinned to the top of the page right here in the featured section. The winner for that will be selected end of day, Thursday, October 24th. Then the signed Patrick Mahomes jersey can be found in the bids portion of the official Chiefs app or the link in the description if you want to sign up on desktop. And this is where Chiefs Bids has all kinds of signed Chiefs memorabilia as well as game-worn items from current and or former Chiefs players you can bid on. The app and website both get updated all the time, so check back frequently to see what could be in there. Right now, they have several signed game-used balls, signed Week 7 and 8 commemorative tickets, helmets, footballs, and much more. But once you are in the bids portion of the Chiefs app to enter for your chance to win that signed Mahomes jersey, just select the filter button at the top right and change the offer type to giveaways. Then the jersey is going to immediately pop up for you. Make sure to fill out your profile, including a shipping address and card info, because the winner will have to pay for shipping, but that is a steal for a signed jersey from the best quarterback in the game. Make sure to do that ASAP, by the way, because the jersey winner will be selected Sunday evening after the Chiefs curb stomp the Raiders. Next up, Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes spoke to the media today, being asked some loose questions around the trade that was made earlier today. We're going to get there, trust me, but neither of these guys really gave the media anything. Andy Reid straight up said he's letting Veach deal with the trade, and when pressed again about it, he said, "I know nothing." Meanwhile, Mahomes wasn't directly asked. I think the media was probably told not to ask him anything directly about the trade, since at the time it wasn't 100% official. But since this is the third year in a row the Chiefs have traded for a receiver before the deadline, Mahomes was asked about the process of what it's like to bring a receiver in from a different system, mid-season when you're rolling, and he basically said the goal is just to get them up to speed as quickly as humanly possible, which he trusts the coaches to help do. Then it's between him and said receiver to build rapport out there on the football field. Well, thank God the Chiefs brought in a savvy vet that should be able to quickly build that rapport, and he's going to be a nightmare for opposing defenses in the right scheme, which the Chiefs are going to be able to exploit that. And that guy has a great feel for space and a guy that rarely drops passes. This is all good news considering the Chiefs wideouts led the league in drops last year, but also have had trouble getting on the same page with Mahomes at times this year. Sure, Worthy is guilty of that this season, but he's a rookie and is still getting ramped up. Sky Moore, though, he is in his third year and basically has zero rapport with Mahomes. Then the other two who were showing they were on the same page with him was Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown, and they're both out for the season. Don't get me wrong, Mecole Hardman has a nice little niche role he can play. Justin Watson is a valued safety hatch for Mahomes at times as well, but again, the two main ones, Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown, were out due to injury. Then obviously Juju Smith-Schuster is out as well with the hamstring issue. Now, on the subject of Hollywood Brown, Andy Reid did say today that he is on schedule or a bit ahead of schedule in his recovery. He's doing great, is a hard worker, and is doing very well considering the injury that he's recovering from. Now, James Palmer also shared today that there is a real chance Hollywood could return for the playoffs, and I really hope that's true. Even with that news, though, it means Hollywood Brown still probably won't be back until sometime in January. And when you have Rice for sure done until 2025, as well as Juju Smith-Schuster further re-aggravating his hamstring, it was no surprise that the Chiefs made a move, but I was just surprised that it happened at 6 a.m. this morning. The last thing I'll say here before pivoting to that is Andy Reid shared a bit more about Juju and his hamstring, saying the coaching staff thought they were being cautious enough with him in that game against the Niners, but this time his hamstring injury is, quote, a little bit worse. So I anticipate KC being without Juju for a few weeks at this point, but hopefully it is sooner than that. However, I think it was Juju's injury that kind of forced the Chiefs' hand a bit to go and get a receiver as soon as this week. And yesterday it was reported that the Chiefs did indeed reach out to the Rams about trading for Cooper Kupp. The Rams, though, wanted a second-round pick and weren't willing to eat a large chunk of the player's salary. The Chiefs, meanwhile, didn't want to give up a day one or a day two pick. They don't have much cap space as it is. They have like $4 million in cap space right now. So they moved on from Kupp, and very late last night circled back with the Titans about veteran wideout DeAndre Hopkins. Well, that actually progressed nicely, and by 6 a.m. this morning, it was reported everywhere that a deal was being worked out to send DeAndre Hopkins to the Kansas City Chiefs. Ian Rapport and Adam Schefter were the first guys on it, with the phrasing this morning being the Titans and Chiefs are working to finalize a trade to send D-Hop to KC. Well, basically, they were working out exact trade compensation as well as how much of DeAndre Hopkins' salary the Titans would be willing to eat. Well, let's start with the salary. D-Hop's prorated base salary this year has roughly $5.3 million left for him to make, and the Chiefs, again, only have around $4 million in cap space, so that doesn't really work. That's why somehow Brett Veach got the Titans to take on half of his salary, so the deal could end up happening. That means D-Hop is only going to cost the Chiefs around $2.5 million this year, which is kind of mind-blowing when you think about it for the value. That's next to nothing in the grand scheme of things. Now for the draft capital, it's actually the Chiefs' 2025 fifth-round pick that could become their fourth-round pick if KC makes it to the Super Bowl and Hopkins plays 60% of the snaps. I mean, I think most Chiefs fans would be fine with that fifth-round pick becoming a fourth-round pick because that would mean there's a very real chance that the three-peat actually happens. Anyway, all that happened this morning at the wee hours of the morning. I was still asleep and woke up to the news, with Ian Rapport saying later today that the deal is now done and D-Hop is on his way to KC. Well, he wasn't seen at the media's look during practice today, but maybe, I would assume after he passes his physical, he should be out there and working tomorrow. So there you go, D-Hop is now, very soon, going to be a Kansas City Chief, and he's only going to cost the team $2.5 million and a fifth-round pick that could become a fourth. Veach absolutely cooked with this deal. I would assume, though, that KC is going to do their due diligence, and this will only get all officially done if he passes his physical. I presume he will pass it, but he's been dealing with some injuries this season. It was reported back on September 5th that he tore his MCL back at the end of July, but it was a small enough tear that he didn't need surgery, and he's played every game this season, so I believe the knee is fine. But just 2 days ago on Monday, Tennessee's coach Brian Callahan said that D-Hop didn't play during the fourth quarter of the team's loss to the Bills because he was dealing with lower leg soreness, specifically in the calf and Achilles area, which absolutely terrifies me. But maybe he was actually just sick of trying to catch passes from Mason Rudolph. It's been a tough go for Hopkins and everyone over there, really, as Will Levis has been playing pretty piss poor before injuring his shoulder, then Mason Rudolph took over. And that's why I'm not reading much into D-Hop's stat line at all for this season. He only has 15 catches for 173 yards and a lone touchdown on the year, but Tennessee's offense has been an absolute train wreck. Last year, though, D-Hop had 75 catches for 1,057 yards and 7 scores, which was better than any Chiefs pass catcher's stat line last year. The 32-year-old vet may not be who he once was, but that's proof enough, his 2023 stat line, that he's basically a better option than any healthy receiver on the roster. I mean, Xavier Worthy plays a completely different role, so set him aside. But D-Hop might have even more in him still than Juju at this point in time, even with Juju healthy. And I think personally that Juju is a great addition to the room, so don't get me wrong, that's no disrespect to him. It's more just props to how good of a receiver DeAndre Hopkins is. And that's how I most likely think D-Hop's going to be used here in Kansas City's offense, in the Juju/Rashee Rice role opposite Travis Kelce. He was used like that at times inside in the slot with the Titans, but spent the majority playing on the outside, so he can do both. You can have him outside, you can have him inside. He's not going to always create a ton of separation, but Andy Reid is the best at scheming players open, and D-Hop is a very technical route runner and a very great catcher of the football. I'll get to that in a second. There's going to be times, though, where Mahomes you just need another option where you can trust somebody to get open, whether it's man or zone, and catch the freaking ball. And D-Hop is a guy that can do that. He has some of the surest hands in the league, only 19 drops on nearly 900 targets and 530 catches, which is pretty freaking good. So yeah, when a defense now has to worry about Worthy taking the top off, as well as Travis Kelce and DeAndre Hopkins in the middle of the field, that's going to be a problem. Combine that with how well the Chiefs have been running the football. You got to respect KC's run game this year, and it's going to really put a strain on defenses. Then Juju Smith-Schuster will return, most likely in a few weeks. It's going to be a lot of fun for the Kansas City Chiefs offense, in my opinion. The key is everybody just has to stay healthy week in and week out, including D-Hop, who the Chiefs are giving up draft capital and a little bit of salary cap space for. So please, God, just help these guys stay healthy because it's been a real problem for the team this year. And with all that being said, I would love to get your thoughts on this trade that the Chiefs made today. Do you love having D-Hop here, or nah, man, he is past his prime and KC could have done better? I think my counter to that answer would be it's hard to beat the cost and draft capital here, considering who all was still available. Veach really made something great happen for minimal cost, both from a draft capital and salary cap standpoint, and you have to respect him for that one. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on all that in the comments on the trade. And before I get out of here, I wanted to take a quick look at today's injury report from Chiefs practice because There is a new addition that I don't like seeing on there. It was a lighter 10-10-10 day where the team cycles through 10 offensive plays, 10 defensive plays, and 10 minutes of special teams. But running back Kareem Hunt, he's a new addition and was listed as a limited participant with a hip issue. At least this injury is new. He had something else pop up on there a couple weeks ago when he first got here. It was like shoulder/clavicle area. But the hip is new. That's not something you want to see because this man has been balling out and has been one of the key pieces of the Chiefs offense and is very much needed out there. It's still early on in the week though, so not going to read too much into this here, and let's see how he progresses on Thursday and Friday. Then the only two players who didn't practice today were defensive end Mike Dana, pec, and Juju Smith-Schuster, hamstring. Andy Reid already said on Monday that Juju won't play this Sunday, so that is no real surprise. Meanwhile, Mike Dana has been dealing with a pec injury that kept him out of last week's game, and he very well could miss this week's game as well. The rest of the players on there, they practiced in full, but there are a couple new additions to the list. Linebacker Leo Chanel, shoulder. Wide receiver McCole Hardman, knee. Safety Jaden Hicks, ankle. Defensive tackle Derek Nottie, triceps. Safety Justin Reed, hand. And tight end Jared Wiley, Achilles, were the rest of the guys on this list. But again, practiced in full. Not too worried about them at the moment because basically, if you need any sort of treatment at all from the training staff, they've got to put you on the injury report. Now, I'm not going to get too in-depth here on the Raiders injury report. We'll talk about that more in full on Friday's video after the final injury report drops, but there's a few names on here worth looking at. There was a few guys that did not participate at all today. Tight end Harrison Bryant with an elbow. You have tackle Colton Miller with an elbow as well, and then guard Dylan Parham. There was 3 or 4 limited participants that you can see on there as well. But a couple names I just want to draw your attention to is going to be Max Crosby with an ankle listed. He is finally a full participant. Hasn't done that at practice in a while, at least on a Wednesday. So he's trending towards being even healthier after dealing with some sort of an ankle sprain. He's going to play in this game, but he has been battling through some injury there. And then Jacoby Myers, he's dealing with an ankle injury of his own, and he has not played in the past 2 games. He's the Raiders' #1 wide receiver after Devontae Adams got traded, so that's going to be something key. Will Jacoby Myers be playing in this game? It looks like he's trending up again after missing 2 games, but that is certainly something to watch. And with that, that's all for today's injury report that I'm going to go over right now. Covered a lot in this video, but let me know your thoughts on everything that went down today. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?